Oh, you know, I have such my relationship with my ancestors is ever developing. It's difficult and it's so fraught, at least for me, because I'm also recovering from a very specific kind of displacement. So um the women in my family are Jehovah's Witnesses. Like a lot of the women in my family are raised in that sort of spiritual faith. And as a result, growing up queer and coming into queer consciousness, like with that has been and is a real
Where was the
ride, a
trigger
real
warning?
ride,
Oh my God.
And we should issue absolutely like a deep content warning for
No, I
religious
had the exact
domination.
same experience. I was just like, whoa, okay,
Oh
hold
my
on, zoom
gosh.
it out.
The Other Radio.
Welcome back to Chakra Hunz. We're super excited to be bringing back our little Kiki sessions, and we have a very special guest.
A fabulous guest. Very excited.
Fabulous guest, and we're really privileged to be in the midst of such greatness. South African writer, editor, poet, griot of the times, really, and author of Everything is a Deathly Flower. Maneo Mohale is here, and we're just like super happy to see you. How are you doing?
Honestly, I can't. It's just every minute that I get to spend with you both is just like a wonderful balm as well. Like it's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to see you. I'm excited about the chat. It's just, glory, you know?
You are always such a lovely ball of joy and light. Every single time I see you, I saw you a few weeks ago on the prom, random, first time I go out of my house. I shouldn't have been out of the house. And then I'm walking here and then I see you and your wonderful fiance, if you can say. And it's just, even in that 5-minute interaction, I was just in a good mood, better energy. It was so good to see you.
Oh my gosh. And it's so easy to be a reflection of the energy that I encounter. And I remember that day, it was just so wonderful to see you. So if you were receiving warmth, it's because you gave that to me. Thank you so much.
Look at the poeting. Oh my goodness.
Stop. It's an occupational hazard.
We love it. We love it. And I'm going to put on my Deborah Patter voice and just start hitting you with questions, And I think my biggest curiosity is, with your story, is that there's so much similarities between you and I, especially your story of growing up and straddling these two worlds, Katlehong and then the suburban East Rand. And that's very much a mirror of kind of my upbringing as well. I was kind of between city, township, suburbia. So I kind of had little glimpses of each of the worlds. Now, my question is, how did that exposure to all these different types of worlds that exist in our South Africa, our land, influence the person that you have become, from Benoni to Canada, and did that contribute to the journey of becoming a writer and to who you are today?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's a meaty question and a delicious question. And I knew you were gonna be on me straight out the gate. So okay. I should have known as well that you're gonna throw me no low balls. Gosh, it's so interesting. I just today I was thinking about especially in the wake of what has happened in Johannesburg CBD with this mysterious explosion, which has, I think, rocked us, not just in sort of a physical sense, but in it feels like what's underneath the surface of the city is like trying to make itself known. And there's a kind of reckoning that has been happening, not to sort of like omify everything, but it's difficult to be a poet and not see a metaphor in the times. And as someone who comes from the East Rand, I think very seriously about the history of the city and the gold, and the legacy of the discovery of gold in the 1880s. So it's just like I'm thinking about these things because I see the material realities, the inequalities in terms of like the people that were sent into the ground and beneficiaries of that wealth. Like we're starting to see that gap widen and widen and widen. So I think, as it comes to me, as it is from me, like it's always so difficult to kind of just like ground it all the way down. But my family, I grew up in the East Rand. I grew up between Tatlehong, Davidton, Benoni, and Bedford View. That space. And then my grandmother moved. Yeah. Oh, baby.
Yeah, I see it.
The Bermuda. Bermuda Yamampela. Okay.
It's giving Bermuda. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say like facts are facts. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Like no mythical place on earth has anything on us. But my grandmother now lives in the East Rand of the city, still is there. So when I go visit, it's definitely that sort of tension. I think I grew up as a little baby of tensions and contradictions, and I think that movement between like the East Rand of the city and then this rapid class ascension that I benefit from as like a little baby born in 1992, you know, and then entering the schools that I into, and like it's obviously impacted so much of how I see the world and also how I language the world, you know. It's been, I think a lot of my poetry is a poetry of contrast as a result. And moving from like Jersey and then being educated in Canada on Turtle Island on Indigenous territory, like I got to understand these big, huge concepts, like these scary concepts, and decolonization then, because I landed in Canada in 2011, and a political movement called I Don't Know More, which was spearheaded and led by Indigenous communities, First Nations in Canada. Like I started to think about what it means to be from South Africa, what it means to be queer from South Africa, like all of these questions in a really literal sense. I was asked to reckon with my history and my relationship to a colonial project, to an imperial project, an ongoing imperial project. I had to beat bub-ups really quick. So yeah.
And you do that.
Yeah.
You do that so well. Like you communicate that so well. Like apart from it being so beautiful, it is so relatable. Like poetry isn't everyone's second language, but what you do is it feels so much like the words that you feel. Like, well, at least for me, I can like, it's relatable. It's something so relatable. And because you've almost created like a rainbow of all your identities and all your experiences, and then kind of put them back together in this really beautiful way. And so much of your writing, it makes it so relatable to like take in what you're saying, and also make it feel like, yeah, this is not a crazy thing to be feeling these feelings and experiencing Joburg in this way, or humanness in this way.
Oh, thank you. It's always so beautiful to hear how the words land. So thank you so much for giving that back to me.
Riot of our times, honestly. That's how I feel.
Please.
You know, I feel like every
Angel.
generation has a voice, and I feel actually quite lucky that in our current generation in South Africa, I feel like we have a multitude of different voices, and that color all of what we are. And I don't think that really existed as much, maybe even like 30 years ago. And it's just a testament, I guess, to what worked in the system, was at least to kind of bring out people that are able to articulate that, you know? Definitely.
I mean, I was thinking about the day that we met. Yeah, like I I love kind of like venturing into the past, but it's just
Yeah.
like I was thinking that about you. We met. I was working for a magazine that's no longer around anymore.
Platform.
Bitch magazine, this feminist. Yeah, no, it wasn't Platform. It was Bitch first.
Oh,
That's
bitch.
that I
Yes,
came for you.
yes.
I came for you for Bitch, and I thought that about you, and still think that about you. That it's just like it was so difficult because I just came into. I was just starting to call myself femme in public. Like I was like. I was like, okay, not only am I just like a feminist writer, but like in terms of like my identity, I was calling myself femme. And as a result, I was also trying to find people who could like do that, like who were calling themselves these things, but also not necessarily with any kind of dogmatic language. Because I think in 2015, we went through like a language moment
Yeah.
where we were calling ourselves the vibes, you know? We really did. Like and it was a beautiful moment. It was an important moment, and it was also because it was such a magical conscientizing space. Yeah, it was just so beautiful. So I remember looking for people because I didn't want to feel lonely, because I'm like, you know, I'm queer, but I'm also queer in a very particular kind of way. I'm non-binary, but my non-binariness, or like my gender non-conformity, or my gender queerness, I'm not of the idea that I have to denounce my femininity in any sort of way. I think that my femininity is very dangerous and powerful. I think that anyone who deliberately not only expresses but chooses and like embodies femininity is automatically a dangerous person under the system, under the current dispensation. So I think when we sat down and had that chat, I felt like I was like, ooh, here's a voice of a corner of a generation that I want to speak to. Like I wanted us to have conversations about our elders, but I wanted us to have conversations about our elders that didn't feel stagnant and dead. And our conversation about Brenda and Libu Matosa, I was like, yes, this is family. This is family. This is someone who has an idea of lineage and performance and political power and queerness as this den of just endless creativity. So right back at you, sweetie, like voice of a generation and stuff. Right back at you. Right back at you. Right back at you.
Us. And look
100%.
now. Like, look at how the community has grown, and, you know, even watching the up and coming generation just like hold their power, you know, and some of that power that I think a lot of us did not have when we were like 16 or 18 or even 25. And
isn't that sexy? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
I was just watching, okay, let's get in the pop culture element of it all, but I was just watching a recap on Glee, whatever, just a video essay about Glee. Anyways, one of the main
I'm not going to judge you.
One of the plot lines was about like Kurt and his queerness, and this is 2014, 2000, when was Glee? I guess late 2010s, late 2000s. And they handled that so interestingly, because it was just like this thing of him, he's obviously gay, he's obviously queer, he's obviously out and proud, and how they have to handle that within the show is that watching it back, you're like, it's kind of crazy that there was this very strange, unbalanced, like unprepared way of talking about sexuality and about queerness, and even like mainstream pop culture, and in a space that is very much queer when you think about something like the show tunes and the Glee of it all. So it's really great to see now, in contrast, and it's been, not even, as you're saying, 2015 is when we learned the language, and now coming to here, we were a whole lot more comfortable with it. It's very exciting, and it's good to also be in a comfortable space to feel, you know, within your own specific identity.
Absolutely. And also I think that there's a really gorgeous languaging around identity now that we're learning from like upcoming generations. But also I think that we're also starting to have circular conversations that are more authentic to an African understanding of time.
Yes.
Because we don't have this sort of like linear understanding that like the idea of what comes after and what comes before is just really beautiful and fluid. And I think about artists like Desire and the way that they embody elements of a kind of like past futurity, this sort of like looking back, looking forward, but also this collapsing of time, but also this as a performer who is also a harbinger of things to come. It's just like, it's beautiful. So I'm seeing this everywhere, and has been seeing this everywhere, and I'm excited for us to continue developing a language of seeing each other and ourselves that's homegrown from the soil.
100%.
Made.
That's a very real element of your writing, though, is that you do feel comfortable in your connection to the past and the deceased. You speak a lot about the ancestors and how you write, and it feels very present as well at the same time. And I just wanted to know if you could like elaborate on the significance of speaking to those who have passed, and how like these conversations impact your life and your writing.
That's a sexy question. Oof, of course I knew the hands would like give it to me. Okay. You know, I have such, my relationship with my ancestors is ever developing. It's difficult, and it's so fraught, at least for me, because I'm also recovering from a very specific kind of displacement. So the women in my family are Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, a lot of the women in my family are raised in that sort of spiritual faith. And as a result, growing up queer and coming into queer consciousness, like, with that has been and is a real vibe.
Where was the trigger warning? Oh my God.
And we should issue absolutely like a deep content warning for religious
No, I had the exact same experience. I was just like, whoa, okay, hold on, sort it out.
No, you know, but like, because of that, I'm also kind of dissolving and unmaking and making and remaking my relationship to the past, and as well to like my own bloodline, and healing my ways of communicating with myself and my bloodline, because a lot of that has been sort of shrouded and shamed as superstition, has also suffered a particular kind of racialized and gendered dismissal, that I feel like the impact of, and I know that I'm not special in this at all. Like, a lot of us are trying to figure out now in our like early 30s, like, how on earth do we begin to speak? But I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have relationships with healers and incredibly spiritually gifted people who have, like, in their own ways, just like winked at me to say, like, here's a way, like, you can try and do this, and like, here's a message here, and you know, and those guideposts, especially as a writer, especially as a writer who's preoccupied with meaning and empire and the unfolding sort of consequences of empire on like cute little babies like us, you know.
Baby, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm figuring it out, I think, and that role, I think I'm starting to see the ways in which poetry is also spirit work and has always been spirit work, and it's mysterious and strange and hot and like juicy in ways that I'm only just now like buckling myself in for. It's really gorgeous. Yeah,
so exciting at this point to watch this begin. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we also do on Chakra Huns is that we're kind of discovering and kind of reclaiming our spiritual health and our spirituality and our connection with the things that make us find meaning in, you know, this apocalyptic world that we live in.
You can say that again.
And one of the things that I love to ask, especially creative people like yourself, is what rituals and things have you taken or adopted rather from your ancestors and from your ancestry, and also from other cultures that kind of keep you spiritually aligned, or when the road is kind of jiggering, it kind of brings you back to that core. And I think because we need to share this information as well, of like, how are people connecting spiritually, because we're
also building our own language for it. It's very much our own curated thing. We're starting our own thing, so it's like so good to hear how other people are practicing it. So there's always gonna be like a little get somewhere that we can like grab. Whatever you say now, I'm probably gonna be like, okay, now I'm like lighting candles for the evenings.
No, fantastic. No, I'm surrounded by such amazing, powerful like witches that I get to kind of learn from as well. In terms of like rituals that completely ground me, my mentor and like chosen family, Miss Bongela, is one of the people that like reminded me of the power of Pasha. Hey, hey, whoa! Like it's so and like developing one's own relationship with that like ancient, incredibly ancient practice of how to speak and just communing with oneself and communing with one's bloodline. And it's been like wonderfully sort of like trial and error, because I don't know what I'm doing in certain senses, but like I'm guided by intuition, and intuition I've learned is so powerful, and so is very much like a useful tool to fall back on, and also just to be guided by. So I have a little corner of my house, and that's just my zone, that's my space, and it's candles and coins and curry shells and all of the vibes, limpepo, and yes, thank goodness. And right now, a Nip, viceroy for my grandfather who passed during COVID. So as a way to kind of commune with him. And because of especially as my like music journalism background, I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna sneeze, and it's probably them. They're like, yeah, you're chatting now.
Let it out.
Let it out.
Let it out.
Like a, you see. They're like, you're saying, huh?
We've called.
Yeah, and I'm so deeply guided and so deeply loved by my people. But yeah, I have a corner of my house also where I have my vinyl collection is 3 generations. It's my father's and my grandfather's and mine, and my partner's now. And also that's a really beautiful way, at least in our home, like just putting a record on, lighting a candle. And very often the conversations that flow from there are really gorgeous, and where how the air bends around us also is a way for me to kind of sit still, as a reminder to just be silent. I think that's also a large spiritual practice that I'm also trying to just like be okay, especially as a deeply anxious person, and with a person with generalized anxiety disorder. It's just like as a way to be like, be quiet. Sometimes, sometimes the messages and the healing and all of the stuff, sometimes is in the silence, in the real gorgeous carpety quiet, and again, like I'm surrounded by, how I learn is just from other people. One of my really close friends is Dumi Muluto, and they are very much like of the new agey sort of Thelemic tradition, and I'm learning more about that. And then in my life as well, I have a wonderful healer, Gogo Mahludi, or Lisa Krakatan, who's an incredible writer, and we kind of connected from our male and guardian days and jazz writing days, but now learning so much about Isintu from a spiritual perspective, but like through friendship, which is like so beautiful. So I think the central message I think now is like, just let yourself be taught. It's okay to be quiet and let yourself be taught.
Yes.
And as soon as that switch happens, like teachers arrive everywhere, which is delicious,
That's amazing. So it's like great that you're saying this. I'm pretty gonna this is my theme for the year. I've been thinking about it. It's that the year we've been even speaking about like what like sound means to us and how we like present in our spaces. And one of the things that keep coming back to me at least is like the being quiet. I'm also a very anxious person, and it is that need to fill space with something, and the quiet of listening. And it's so much more interesting just to be around other people that just know something different from you, and how easy it is to absorb all of that from other people and from other experiences, as you said, like the music, like having like music playing and just listening to an album. No one makes albums anymore. I want to sit through an album. Sit through an album, hear a story,
get up and make albums.
Have your own perspective on the story. There's so much discourse and like access to other people's thoughts and ideas about stuff, and just to sit in your own like chill little space, and listening to music is a beautiful meditation. I'm really like, I find it amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's hard to kind of figure out everything. It's hard to kind of, especially when we're so displaced from ways of knowing, and a lot of the times, um, especially ancestrally, we learned from community, we learned from watching, we learned from being close to one another, we learned from being from having conversations, and especially in families that have been disrupted and displaced by all kinds, at least in my family, the thread of religion and power has really like kept us from one another in that sense. But you know, like all things, everything can be healed. Anything made by man can be undone by man. So
100%.
it's hard here.
We always come back and we multiply.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of music, I'm very curious. What is on your playlist right now, or what are you listening on your records? We want your top 3 that you kind of keep going back to in this current moment. So give it a think.
Oh, you hate me. Okay. I'm not even gonna think about it, because if I think about it too much, we're going to be here for half an hour. So on rotation right now, because I just don't want to think too much. I'm a huge Radiohead fan. So I've been listening. We have a cute little corner of their discography, but Kid A is always just like a just an evergreen album for me, just to also just expand my brain instantly. It just feels like the world is so much bigger than you think that it is, sort of way. My partner and I, a little while ago, we picked up Hugh Masekela live in Lesotho, Hugh Masekela and Friends, and that's just been such a gorgeous. And we have that on vinyl, and that's been a huge gift, as well, just to go through. And then just evergreen, I'm really thinking about D'Angelo's Voodoo, not only because it's a hot album, but because not just because it's sexy. But just because it's also just like also spiritually rich and so black and so intricate, and like also such a wonderful artistic reminder to pay attention to detail, and that black traditions of thought and performance and expression are richer and more and warmer than anything that we could ever imagine. So yeah, those are the 3. Okay. Don't ask me anymore because I die.
It's an amazing 3. They like follow a thorough line. It's so good. Like they're all of these albums are very much about detail and about like very it's like a very orchestral, very like beautifully produced albums, and also experiences as well with the live albums. So very good answers.
Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore.
They don't.
Thank you. They really don't. But that's also important that they don't make them like that anymore. I think I'm not of, and I'm so maybe because this is like the eternal optimist in me, but I'm just like, I love that we aren't in the same place as we were 5 minutes ago.
100%.
And not even thinking about 5 years ago or 15 years ago, or you know.
Yeah.
And we need that if we're serious about. I'm like a theory hun as well, and the one that I rest on all the time, and you'll hear me talk about everywhere, because oh my gosh, because it's gorgeous. Is a book called Queer Utopia by a daddy called Jose Esteban Munoz, and in that, queerness is defined as a futurity, as a thing that is not yet here, will never be here, you know. And I think that places us in a space of just constant innovation. So I'm glad that things aren't like the same as they were. I'm glad that they don't make albums like that anymore. Like, we need new albums. We need new names. We need new songs. We need new bops. We need new ones.
We need new experiences.
Yes, new dolls, new babies.
Because it is a weird thing that I think we, like, our millennial generation has the weird critique of, especially watching like now like Gen Z entertainment, of just being like, oh, this is not the same experience, it isn't as dark, where's that representation? And it's just like, the girls have a different experience of life compared to how we grew up, and our parents had a different experience compared to how we grew up as well. And so like, obviously there's going to be like a difference in language, and as you said, it's exciting to see the growth because we don't know what's coming. And from this perspective, I'm hoping, and I feel like it can only be more exciting because there's so many more voices in the room that can speak truly about their experience. So let it be different. Let it be magical and not the same.
Different. Let's welcome the queer utopia.
Fully.
Exactly. Let's be harbingers of the world that is not yet here, but that is inevitably on its way. You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I think we definitely can just wrap it on that note because it is.
We're gonna carry on forever. You could be here forever.
Good. I'm like so conscious. I'm like, oh my god, we've already gone over your time. But it's obviously been such an immense pleasure to.
You're definitely our third. You're feeling like a third Chakra Hun. I think we're gonna have to have you back on another wine.
Please! Oh my gosh, that would be the honor of my life. I will I will bring my evil eye and all of my incense.
Prepared.
I'll be playing all my things. Yes. Oh my gosh, please. I would love to be an honorary Hun. Please.
You're definitely an honorary Hun. All your nuggets of wisdom have been amazing, and it's going to be so exciting to share this with everyone. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Angel.
Inspiring the children. And before we let them go, please let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you on social media or website and any upcoming kind of engagements.
Of course, yeah, for sure. So I'm a terrible social media babe, but I am sometimes there on the socials being cute, sharing nerdy nuggets of nerdydom. So if you want to find me, I'm on Instagram at Maneo Mohale. Sorry, that's just a drone in the back. The little drone. Drone coming. Beautiful. And also you can find my website is also my name and my surname, maneomohale.com. And my portfolio and stuff is there, and a lot around my first book. And yes, I'm writing a second book and a third book, friends. And you know what?
Yes.
I will finish them.
Yes,
I'll finish them.
We're manifesting.
Intentions
You will.
are there.
You will.
Yes, yeah. So that's what's coming up. There are 2 books that are being born, and just look out for very cryptic notes from me, and then a sudden birth.
Well, we heard it here first, so that means it's definitely going to happen, and we're going to have you back to talk about these new books.
Yes.
Fine.
And
That's a date.
To ask you to just read some of the new work when you come back, because
I'd love to.
It is the most,
Yeah.
It makes my heart melt. So I'm really sorry that we didn't get back to our listeners right now, but stay tuned.
Definitely check out your previous work.
For sure.
And also you do pop up live at the galleries and whatnot every now and then. So just be on the lookout.
I do.
Be on the lookout.
Okay, for sure. Mwah. Thank you, my honey.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, babes.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
The Other Radio.